74, the podcast with Dan Gardell and Greg Evans.
Talking just as we're about to come on, Greg. We're on the podcast. Greg is talking absolute rubbish at me before we're about to come on. We haven't even got time for pleasantries because Greg's got to go at 7:15 apparently. So we better get straight into the 1874 podcast this week. Greg, Villa bounced back in style, hammered last week at Newcastle, but gave Everton a hammering this week. So Villa now level on goal, well back to zero on goal difference, and things feel happy and good again.
Yeah, pretty much as I predicted as well. I didn't
Was
think
it?
there would be too much of a concern this weekend. I really did fancy Villa to go back and win against Everton. I thought it would be. I mean, look, this sounds a little bit disrespectful, but I did think it would be as simple as it was, and it was in the end, wasn't it? You know, Everton are a poor side who are struggling, and Villa have just got so much quality now that they were able to exploit it.
I did describe Everton as a soulless club, and I did a stream. Yes, that's not aimed at the fans, by the way. That's the team on the pitch in the direction they're going in. I believe that it is soulless. I said on yesterday's stream they reminded me of the Villa side that went down on 17 points. Would you say that's fair?
I mean, to some look. I said this about Everton last season. I said that when Villa beat them, they looked like a really poor, struggling side. Got a lot of criticism from Everton fans at that point, but they went on to show that they were that a struggling side and only just about survived. I think they're going to have similar problems this year. I don't think there's not too many similarities with that Villa team.
Just a Garnier.
Other than Garnier, but Villa signed a lot of youngish players, didn't they? Young, unproven players who'd come over from France and Spain. And then they mixed it in with a few experienced players, and it felt like Villa didn't really have the right balance on the coaching and management team, with Tim Sherwood and Paddy Riley at looking to go to different directions. But Everton just seems like it's just a club that's struggling, isn't it? I was up in Liverpool over the weekend and went past the new stadium that's getting developed, and obviously the horrific news in the week about the worker, but. Just going past the new stadium and thinking, I wonder if this club are gonna still be in the Premier League. When this is complete, it's something that they're going to have to deal with. But yeah, look, great for Villa that they were able to get back to winning ways, and they were fun to watch, weren't they? They're really enjoyable.
Yeah, there was a couple of players that were a big part of that. I know you want to talk about Super John McGinn. Just worlds away from the John McGinn that started last season for Villa as captain, isn't he? He's the captain now, and he's the real leader and the heartbeat of that team.
Yeah, I think he's enjoying himself as well. He's got a bit more freedom in there with Kamara and Louise, and the real structure, behind him. Just gives him and Diaby a little bit more freedom. Well, I mean, Diaby's going to get that freedom anyway as an attacking player, but McGinn is able to roam a little bit. He was speaking to Emery during pre-season about some of his targets and aims, and it was to get more goals. The fact that he's done that after 2 games is a great start for him. So hopefully we're going to be seeing a few more goals from him. Really inspiring performance. The most progressive passes, I think, most dribbles. Just sort of really leading the way creatively, and just looked like he was enjoying himself again, which is good. And it's obviously a big week for him going back to Hibs.
Yeah, it's really clever the way the players were moving around. I watched the match of the day too, analysis before I came on, and McGinn and Diaby caused chaos really with the little pockets of space that they dropped into, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think 2 of them looked like they were working well together. Building a bit of a rapport on the pitch. It's really interesting with McGinn because I always remember the very first time I spoke to him, and Jack Grealish was obviously at Villa at that point, and the first thing he said was, I've learned very quickly to win the ball and pass it to Jack Grealish, whereas now it feels like he can win the ball and do things himself, and actually be a lot more creative himself. Getting on the score sheet as well. But it's just, it just feels like in the right structure, which is what he has always needed, he's going to thrive. And I think, we've seen him play in a more of attacking role for Scotland and get lots of goals. So he could start to become that player for Villa in an Emery system.
He gets to do a bit of everything in the wider positions, doesn't he? Look, he had a poor game against Newcastle, wasn't alone, and I was sat there thinking, left-hand side, that didn't really work. I think we spoke about that actually last week, but played the left-hand side yesterday against Newcastle, or rather played from the left, obviously, inverting inside quite a lot. But in those wide positions, he can kind of do a little bit of everything because he's still got the ball-winning capability and he still wins the ball back, albeit higher at the pitch than he would in central midfield. He's carrying the ball.
Yeah.
His passing is way better than I think his passing was better than he used to get credit for anyway, but now you're really starting to see that. And he is just the heartbeat and the driving force of everything that Villa do. That's good. He takes the odd set piece as well. So it's almost enabled him to kind of become, I'm wary of using this term, but I don't know how else to phrase it, the complete midfielder, but playing from wide, but it just allows him to do all the things he's good at.
Yeah, and look, he is the complete midfielder, really. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. It's a term, you don't want to use too often because it can be thrown back at you and say, well, he doesn't, this can't do this, can't do that. But he can do pretty much everything to a relatively high level, can't he? And he's now playing in a team that finished 7th last year and are looking to kick on even further. So, he is one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, isn't he? If you want to look at it like that, okay, he's probably not in the top sort of 4 or 5, but when you look at everything that he does, there aren't many players like him, and there are a lot of clubs that would benefit from having John McGinn in their midfield too. So one of the other stats as well, the most passes under pressure as well, just to go back to your highlighting of his passing there. When he's really under pressure, he gets it right as well, and that's that's a big plus. And it's something that again they've been working on in the summer. Patterns of play and little triangles between various players. I think that the Villa team are starting to get used to each other, with Diaby in there. I think Torres came in and did well, didn't he? And looked to sort of move the ball forward very often. Carlos came off the bench, was a good day for him. First Villa Park appearance for nearly a year. Villa, now 8 wins in a row in the Premier League, which is at home, which is pretty incredible. I don't think they've done that since 1990, which
it's not
you might know a little bit more about than that because I was only 3 years old.
I mean, I was only 5 myself, Greg. So I wasn't much older than this. Not a huge age gap between us. Many people would say I look younger, especially when I wear this cap. I assume. Let's talk about Leon Bailey then, because I think yesterday that was probably one of the best games he's had in a Villa shirt. It was very much a case of yesterday. Luca Dean was providing the width from the left-hand side, and Leon Bailey was providing the width from the right. His first few, we spoke about this before, his first few actions in the game were good. And then after that, he went on and had a good game, got a goal, got an assist, was involved in pretty much everything good Villa did. What can Villa do to get more of that Leon Bailey and not the Leon Bailey that frustrates us so much?
Yeah, believe in him, I suppose. Give him the game time.
He does get games. He
does get the game time. He does get the game time. I know, but that for Villa to continue to get that out of him, they've got to believe in him. He's somebody who clearly needs a bit of love, doesn't he? He needs a bit of affection and a manager to believe in him. So he's good, isn't he? When he can get on that ball in the box and sort of take on defenders and cut it back. He's done that a fair few times, and a lot of his assists have come from those positions. And he's quick and skillful. He's got all the attributes. You just want to see more of it. And I think if Villa can become more of a front foot team where they haven't got defenders often, and I'm sure they will.
They will at home, I think.
They will at home, and they will against the lower ranked teams. And hopefully it's his time to come and shine, because we've been saying it for a long time now, haven't we? We want to see more of that Leon Bailey. That's the reason Villa signed him, to play like that, creating and scoring goals. Okay, he's not going to set up and score a goal every single week, but he was direct, he was purposeful, and he looked a bit happier again. His body language at Newcastle, it wasn't great, but he was smiling and that yesterday, and just looked like he was enjoying it a bit more. Maybe he's a home player. All of his goals have been scored at Villa Park. Maybe we need to see, him unleashed at home more often than away, and there might be a different plan away from home. But look, it's something for him to build on, and I'm sure he'll be happy with it.
Got a similar assist in the last home game of the season, actually, against Spurs, where he cut it back on his right foot. It was quite interesting, that first goal, 'cause obviously it was Bailey crossing on his right foot and McGinn finishing
Yeah.
on his right foot. I can't imagine that'll happen too many more times
Yeah.
this
I don't
season.
think he's ever scored in his right foot, has he, McGinn?
I certainly can't remember one for
No,
Villa
I don't think he
that
has.
he scored on his right foot. But yeah, we got us off to obviously a great start yesterday, and yeah, a good day back at Villa Park, 4-0 on your first home game. You'll take that every day of the week, especially off the back of a 5-1 humbling. I just thought Villa were really good yesterday. There was a good performance from Luca Dean, who was offered the freedom of the left hand side of Villa Park all day by Everton. But I do think, actually, watching some of it back today, a lot of the combinations enabled him to be free. It wasn't that Everton just weren't picking him up. Actually, it was more the fact that the way Villa were working the ball and working the movement just opened so much space up for Luca Dean back through the left hand side. But what do you know about his future? Because there is murmurs that he's going to be leaving.
Well, we're hearing it, in the last couple of transfer windows. He's a player that is of interest to a lot of clubs. There has been interest in Italy. There has been plenty of interest in France, and obviously we know of the Saudi Arabia interest that we had reported and talked about last week or the week before. I can't remember, but the issue is, he's on a very, very good wage packet. His salary is very high because when he moved over from Everton, he came for big money, and Villa were able to pay him decent wages. So there aren't many clubs in France that are, or many clubs actually out there in Europe at all, that are either able or willing to pay him the same amount of money that he gets at Villa. So, the Saudi Arabia interest was always the one that was, for me, the one that I thought would be more likely, because money isn't so much of an issue over there, and they're able to pay such high wages. But look, Nice, we know that Nice are interested in him. There have been some discussions. We'll wait and see. I feel like I've supported Dina quite a lot, haven't I, over the times?
He was good yesterday.
He was good yesterday. There's been times where he obviously hasn't been very good. He's been a bit up and down, hit and miss, however you want to phrase it. I just feel like I wouldn't sell him. Don't think, unless Villa
aren't we looking at left backs?
I mean,
There's a lot of links with other
I
left
know,
backs.
but like it's the same scenario, isn't it? It's like you sell him, and do you get a better left back in, regardless of who comes in? Yeah, Villa have been looking at plenty of left backs, and they are in talks, but we don't know until they come in if they're any better. So it's I'm not sure. Like I'm not sure it's the right thing to do to move him on. But look, if he can get a good move somewhere else and Villa can get the money back for him, and then he can get the wages that he's after, then it might work for all parties. But I'm not sure it's the right move, to be honest.
But he's second choice left back, and he's one of the highest paid players. So surely it does make sense to shift him from that perspective and get someone in on lower wages, perhaps, who's more adequate at being a backup to Moreno.
I mean, but Villa are going to have lots of games, so that Moreno isn't going to play 60 games this season.
No, I'm saying sign a left back.
You need two really good players in each position. That's what Unai Emery wants. If Emery thinks he can get a better left back than Digne, then fair enough. I'm just saying, I don't think that it's particular. I don't think it's the standout right decision. I think he's a decent player, and I think swapping the two throughout the course of the season isn't the worst thing.
But I think Moreno's far and away better than him, in my opinion. And he transformed Villa when he came in, Moreno. And I just think when you're one of the highest paid players, you need to be like a Watkins, like a McGinn, like a Martinez, who's one of the first name on the team sheet. And he just isn't that. And I think defensively, in all honesty, I know he was good yesterday. Don't get me wrong. I thought he was brilliant yesterday, putting some lovely deliveries. And maybe what you've said about Bailey rings a bit true with Luca Dean. Good player at Villa Park.
Yeah.
Defensively, I don't think it's too difficult to upgrade on him at all.
Yeah, perhaps not. I'm not sure Moreno's the strongest defender. I think he's great going forward, but
recovery pace, though. That's the thing with Moreno.
Yeah, very quick.
Yeah.
It's something we have to keep an eye on. Look, there's 10 days left of the transfer window. If Villa can get the right deal for him, and and he wants to move, then we'll see. But look, over the summer, I was led to believe that he was happy. He requested a new shirt number, didn't he? So, he had no intentions of leaving, but there has been interest in him for a while. So we will see how that develops. There are plenty of other players that have been linked with moves away from Villa as well. It's all becoming a little bit, not of a concern, but you just wonder, what the plans are now, don't you? Because there are a lot of players being linked with moves away. We knew that Philip Coutinho would probably have left this month. If Villa could have got the right money for him, but the injury that he picked up yesterday might now block that move, because our clubs in the Middle East that are interested in him are willing to buy an injured player. It's something we'll have to again monitor over the next few days. But Coutinho was the one that they were, going to consider moving to get some money back in to help balance the books. Again, another very, very well paid player, £135,000 a week it's still a relatively lengthy contract with little resale value now. You'd think the longer it goes on. It's just I do feel sorry for Coutinho. I have to admit, seeing the pain on his face when he was taken off yesterday with the injury. He hasn't had any luck at Villa, has he, with injuries? It's been really frustrating, and for so long we've just wanted to see what he could do in an Emery team, and he just hasn't had the minutes. It must be really frustrating for him and for the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, looked bright yesterday and very interested. I thought when he came on, was trying to play nice little through balls, linking the play, nice 1-2s, and then he is just unfortunately made a paper at the moment. He just cannot. He's not durable at all.
No, it's such a shame, because for such a high profile player, he's such a great guy. Really, really well liked at Villa. He's humble. He's polite and friendly. All the staff get on really well with him. Has he got the fight out there on the pitch? We haven't really seen that.
I think he works hard
in a Villa shirt. We haven't seen that, but in terms of a guy just in general, top guy, and everyone likes him, and it's a real shame for him at the moment.
Yeah, on the subject of outgoings, as I was leaving Villa Park yesterday, I started to get word that Philogene was off to Hull. So that surprised you? So I've got to say, it took me by surprise. I fully expected him to start yesterday.
Me too, actually.
And then he's not even in the squad, and then you leave the ground and you find out he's probably going to Hull for $5 million. Are you surprised by that?
Yes and no. I have to admit, I thought he would be a player that would be moving this summer anyway.
Was this before the pre-season?
Yeah, before the pre-season. So before the summer, before pre-season, I thought he'd be moving, right? So it doesn't come as a massive surprise to me right now. But the chain of events led me to believe that he was gonna get minutes, this season. And he had conversations with Unai Emery, who told him he was really interested in keeping him. Still does want to keep him, and Emery would love to have him around, because managers want these options. But he missed yesterday's game because he had a slight knock, so it was nothing to do with move or anything. But he wants to play regular. That's the thing, he wants to be a star in the team. He doesn't want to be coming off the bench for 10, 15 minutes. A game. He's 21, I think, going on to nearly 22, I think. So he's not like a 19-year-old John Duran, for example, who can come off the bench at this point in time in his career and score and score. He scored yesterday, and have a short period each game. He wants to be playing regularly. He got the feel of it when he was at Stoke last season, and Stoke pre-season, and then Cardiff. And there are plenty of other clubs that are interested in him. So it's like, he's weighing it up now. He's thinking, well, there's options for him in France. There's options for him in Switzerland. There's options for him in Spain. A number of championship clubs have shown an interest. Hull are the most advanced, because they've actually submitted a bid, which we're led to believe is around £5 million. Keenan Davis is another player they're trying to sign as well. We'll get on to Davis shortly. But for Philogene, that's appealing to him, to go and be the star player at a club and then to play regular. And what Villa will do if he does go, and they are open to letting him go now for the right money, is insert a buyback for the first year of the deal. So if he impresses, Villa can then sign him back. I don't know how much the fee will be. That'll be down to his representatives and the two clubs to obviously negotiate. But Villa are wary of selling some of their youngsters that they've developed and then seeing them kick on and be brilliant in the future. But at the same time, they're trying to become a self-sustainable club where they nurture talent and sell them on for profits if they can get the profits. Aaron Ramsey for 14 million is the classic example. Jaden Philogene for 5 million still seems quite low, but Hull haven't got much money. Certainly not much money to spend, and the Championship. A lot of Championship clubs don't really pay that type of money for players anymore. There are only a handful of Championship clubs that can afford players at that sort of price now.
I was surprised Hull can afford 5 million in all
Yeah,
honesty.
yeah. I mean, look, we're still trying to get to the bottom of the exact figures, but 5 million is a term that I've been told. So we're trying to find out whether that includes Keenan Davis as well, or whether it's just for Philogene. And look, it's not done yet. There's been nothing signed, so there are plenty of other clubs interested. So it's not done and dusted yet. Hull are just the most advanced and want to get this deal done. But look, Jaden Philogene was signed from an academy in London, and if Villa did sign him sell him for what, 3, 4, 5, 6 million, whatever the fee is, that's pure profit, and they're not losing too much because he's not a player that has played for the first team for so long. It just feels like he was the one that was really closest this year, and we were going to see a little bit more of him, but might not be today.
Yeah, Archer's still being linked with a move away as well, obviously for big money. We go back like 6-7 weeks when we signed Pau Torres, and we did that podcast, and you were talking about financial fair play. It didn't go down very well because of the timing. But ultimately, what you were saying 6-7 weeks ago is true. Villa are looking now to sell academy players to build up funds on it, because without that, they can't be as active with incomings as they want to be. So if they shift 3 people for pure profit, which would be a hell of a lot of money between the 3 of them, actually, they're going to probably do it, aren't they?
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of negativity towards my thoughts when I was talking about the FFP side of things. Probably bad timing on my behalf after signing Pau Torres and everything was gearing towards the future. But I was just trying to explain that at some point down the line, Villa needed to move on players, to help balance the books. And it's with the academy players, it's interesting because it's like you sell these players now and you get pure profit back for them, right? And you get that money now. So Villa can go and sign a Diaby and a Torres, and you're paying 90 million euros for the 2 of them between them. But that's going to be staggered over 5-year contracts. If they sell Aaron Ramsey now and Jaden Philogene and Keenan Davis and perhaps Cameron Archer, they get that money straight away. So it's billed as profit straight away. It's what Chelsea are doing here, with their players. And then Chelsea kind of look at it as they're not spending, they're investing. They're selling Mason Mount for 55 million, rising to 60. They're selling Hall to Newcastle potentially in the days ahead. They've made some decent sales in Kovacic and Havertz and have banked profits on them, and that's allowing them to bring in some other players on ridiculously long contracts. Yeah, they're trying to get through a little bit of a loophole, and in some
it's still spread over 5 years, isn't it? Now
8 year. I mean, they're doing 8-year contracts.
No, but in I think I can't remember which way around it is, but there's either the Premier League or the or Europe.
Yeah.
It can only be counted over 5 years, even though it's still an 8-year contract. I can't remember which way around it is.
But and look, Chelsea are probably a bad example because their spending is just ridiculous, and it's up to £900 million under Todd Bowley, and his group. So yeah, probably a bad example. But look, what Villa have been trying to do for a good few years now, under Nassif Sawiris and Wes Edens, is bring in young players, sell them on for a profit. There are other players that are there that are coming through that next batch almost. You've still got your Louis Barrys, your Lamar Bogards, Finn Azaz, Kane, Kessler Hayden. In a year's time, they might be worth the type of money that Archer and Ramsey are now commanding after successful periods in the Football League on loan. The disappointing one probably will be Keenan Davis, because when he was at Nottingham Forest, he was doing really well, and Villa were sort of banking on getting 12 to 15 million pound for him back then. The permanent move didn't go through. He went to Watford on loan, and Watford didn't get promoted, so they didn't sign him permanently. He's now going to be leaving for a relatively low fee. I believe Villa want around £2 million for him, which doesn't seem like quite a lot. A few years ago we thought this was going to be a guy who would help generate a decent bit of profit. But again, it's somebody who's come in and done a job for Villa at times. I remember when him and Buama Samata were the two trying to keep Villa in the Premier
Those
League
were the
and
days.
struggled to score the goals. But look,
Don't forget Borja
they did a
Bastoni
job.
was third choice, Greg, please. Don't
Yeah.
forget Borja.
How good were? So yeah, these are the players that Villa are looking to move on, try and get a bit of money for, and obviously Cameron Archer is the crown jewel, shall we say? He's a player that doesn't really want to go back down to the Championship now. He's a bit reluctant to do that, having had 2 previous loan spells at Preston and Middlesbrough. My understanding is that Sheffield United are the front runners to sign him, so it'll be interesting. But again, all 3 of those that we've mentioned, barring Keane and Davis, Villa will insert or look to insert buybacks into the deals and perhaps bring them back in the future.
What's the hold up with Ramsey? Because that one seems to have been on the table for a long, long time now. Villa are obviously playing Burnley on Sunday.
Yeah, just minor. Well, I say minor details around the terms of the contract. It's been going on for some time. How the buyback's structured, how things like that. But we'll try and give you some more details when I've got full clarity on that.
I know you've got to go shortly, but I can't have you on without asking about incomings. What's the word on the street?
Well, Zaniola's now in through the door, isn't he? I still think Villa might look for one more. I'm not 100. I wouldn't be surprised if they were done, but I still think they might get
Where's
one
all this
more.
left back stuff come from last week? Because I was hearing a lot about Acuna, and now that's gone quiet. I don't know whether it's just because Luka Den had a good game, perhaps, but I was told that Acuna was pretty advanced, in all honesty. And that's gone quiet.
I don't think the discussions have been as straightforward as planned, but I wouldn't fully rule that out yet. I've been saying for weeks, Villa have been looking at fullbacks in Spain, haven't they? Lots of different options have been considered. So yeah, it's over to Monchi now and Emery to put together their plans and see whether they can continue building. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Villa are done, but equally, I do think they might get one more.
But we spoke earlier, and we're back to 2 goalkeepers on the bench, and that was before Coutinho went off injured. I know Villa have had bad luck with injuries, but if you're in 4 competitions,
I know
you can't be having 2 goalkeepers on the bench.
No, it's a stretch, isn't it? At the moment, it's becoming a concern, and Villa are moving on or looking to move on some of these young players who are squad members.
Archer came on yesterday.
Yeah, he didn't look too happy though, did he?
Well, that's because he looked like Duran was ahead of him, and I wouldn't have called that at the start of the season. I'd have said Archer would have been ahead of him.
Not getting good vibes from him. It feels like, look, I don't know. I haven't spoken to him, or he just didn't look too happy. It feels like it's a frustrating period for him because it's felt like the time where he would have been, maybe getting a chance. But look, he might play him at Hibs, or might get some minutes there, and that'll change his thinking. But it seems to me that he's going to be heading for the exit if Villa can get the right fee for him. But I wouldn't expect him to go back to the Championship. In terms of Villa's squad, it's not looking great. Is it? Lots of injuries. The injuries have caused them problems. Bailey and Mings obviously very early on. Coutinho is a disappointing one because with Buendia and Ings, and Ings. Buendia and Mings. Coutinho's the frustrating one now because with Buendia injured, he was going to be the guy that was going to be getting a lot more, minutes, and somebody that Villa would have turned to off the bench. And you just feel like, a lot of pressure now on Zaniolo to come in and hit the ground running. Got to perhaps see more from Duran. Traore, is Traore going to feature now?
On a bench yesterday, wasn't he, Traore?
Yeah.
There's still Dendoncker.
Dendoncker still to come back. Bunham still to come back. There are numbers there, but it just feels a little bit tight, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're a lot. I remember thinking before the Buendia injury, I actually quite like how the squad's set here, and if the window closed tomorrow, I'd be relatively happy. Now it does feel light again. It does feel like we're back to last season.
It's really tough. It's really tough for Villa because they've spent a lot of money, right, on players, and they've got the targets in that they want to get in. And without the injuries, and I know you can't plan like that because you always get injuries in football, but without the injuries, that squad was looking good, really strong. Almost 2 players in every position. You'd fancy them to have, sustained a good early run in the first few months of the season. To get 2 injuries like that for Mings and Buendia, it's just you just can't plan for that really. And you can't. Unfortunately, you just can't react to them. And Sawiris and Edens have been flexible all through their 5 years in charge at Villa, but you can't just keep buying 30, 20 million pound players when players get injured. It happened last year with Dendoncker. When Dendoncker arrived, they thought Luiz was going, Luiz stayed, and now they've got Dendoncker who, can he? Where's he going to fit in?
Europe, I would say.
Possibly, but
I like Dendoncker. I think in 20 minutes,
I think he's all right, and he can do a job at centre back if needed. He was good at the back end of last season. He came in important in games and played an important role. He's a good player to have around, but the midfield's the one that's packed, isn't it?
You say that.
Tielemans and when Ramsey comes back.
Well, he was still wearing a boot on a photo I saw of him yesterday, Ramsey. I've heard Moreno's back next week, but Ramsey is still in that boot. I'm not sure how far away he is. And he's a big player for Villa. They really need him back.
Well, we said 12 weeks when I reported injury news. I said 12 weeks back then, so I don't know how many weeks has passed, but
5, 6, I would say.
So I mean, it's halfway through then.
It just feels a little bit thin, a little bit thinner than I would like.
It does, but you got to think from Villa's perspective. What do you do now from a recruitment?
You don't panic, of course. No,
you can't panic. You just have to. You have to accept and use the other players that you've got in your squad. That's what you got a squad for. Yeah, in an ideal world, you'd have another forward in there. You'd have another left back. Definitely have another goalkeeper.
I'm saying someone who came on yesterday in the game is probably going to go. So it's just like there's already 2 keepers on the bench. That's the bit that's concerning. But we'll save this worry. Well, look, let's get to the end of the window and see where we are. Then will be the time to worry about the squad, and maybe we can do a pod where we look at how the squad is set up and is there enough to carry Villa through the first half of the season. They should be. They managed with a small squad last season, but they literally just had Premier League, didn't they? That's the difference. If they're wanting to go well in the cup competitions, they're going to need a bit of wiggle room to rotate. And at the moment, I don't see where that wiggle room particularly is, especially if Archer goes. You suddenly feel like Watkins is going to be playing every game. And
I mean, look, he was good. It was good for Duran to come off the bench and score. That'll give him, a confidence boost, and hopefully we'll start seeing a little bit more of him in games. Europe's going to be a good thing, and the early rounds in the cup competitions will help because it will give players that don't play, those minutes. Whether Kellyman comes in and maybe gets some.
He would have been on the bench yesterday, wouldn't he? Had it not been for the fact he played Friday night, he would have been one on the bench.
Yeah, so but it is looking a little bit light. But the positives are the strongest team that Villa are able to put out now have just gone and absolutely smashed Everton. So let's ride on that for a little bit and enjoy it, and hopefully Villa will get the job done in Scotland this week. Make that second leg easier, and then we can move on from there. And look, it's still 10 days of the transfer window, as you say. Players might come in. Not everybody that's been linked with a move away will go. There might be 1 or 2 staying still. So we'll see. And there's players to come back, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a manager here, but I was like, didn't get too low after the Newcastle game. I'm not going to get too carried away with yesterday. Love the fact that they won 4-0, obviously brilliant. But I think I didn't get too down about the Newcastle game, so I'm not going to get carried away with the Everton game. That would be my TED talk for the end of the podcast.
It's early days, isn't it? Because you look at across the league. Newcastle obviously had a flying start and then came up against Man City and lost it. Nothing wrong with that. We expected that. Chelsea had a decent performance against Liverpool, but then lost to West Ham. Man United have stuttered. Brighton looked brilliant. Can they continue it? It's just so early into the season, isn't it? You never know what's going to happen. You need probably a couple more months to start seeing the real trends and where teams are strong all week. So
you going Burnley on Sunday? It's kind of your patch now, isn't it? They're out near there. That's your real region. Not at Burnley. No.
I upset the Burnley fans last time I went there, if you remember.
What did you do? I can't remember what you did.
I won't repeat that.
Oh, I'd like to know. I've completely been erased from my memory. I'd love to know what you did. I've completely forgotten. We'll discuss that now when the podcast ends. Thanks very much for joining me, Greg, and thanks to those that have watched live as well. I did forget to put the chat up at the start of the pod, so if you're wondering why I've ignored you all the way through, it's because I forgot to put the chat up. So my apologies there, but I did do a post-match show last night where the audience was very, very involved. So you can forgive me for that one. But yeah, thanks to those that have tuned in live and those that will go on and watch it as well. I'll try and get these up on Spotify. People keep asking me on Twitter. The tech man's not here. Adam Bates is not here. And it's no good asking me. I don't have a clue how to do that kind of thing. And it's even worse if you're going to ask Greg. So don't ask Greg because he's got less clue than me. But yeah, thanks ever so much for everyone who's watched and listened. Be back I'll get a match previewed. I'll try and get a match preview done with Dave Reid ahead of the Hibs game because Greg and myself haven't had time to discuss it tonight. So we'll get that done, and then all the usual shebang in the lead up to the Burnley game as well. So yeah, thanks ever so much for watching, and up the Villa.